I'm Eric Russell. I am out and about at The Pride here at Richmond Triangle Players. You guys have a powerful, powerful show. I mean, this one really had me like, wow. But I'd like to start with, who are you people, and who do you play?
Alright, well I'm Alexi Campbell, I'm the director.
I'm Stacie Rearden Hall, and I play Sylvia.
I'm Nasteff, and I play a lot of people. I play a Nazi, a man, and Peter, and a doctor. I play everybody that they don't play.
I'm Stevie Rice, I play Oliver.
And I'm Nicholas Aliff, and I play Philip.
Now, what I liked about the show was, it's time travel. We don't get to see a play with time travel. And Nazi cowboys and all kinds of things. So I was thinking, I'm watching Doctor Who.
Did you hear the theme?
I didn't hear the whole thing going, yes. And in my head was, you have a time machine, I have a gun, I don't know, let's kill Hitler. Because you have this great line like, so there's a Nazi and you're having drinks with him. I'm just thinking, that's brilliant. But I want to get into the fact that this is time travel per se. It's three people, and we're looking at two different time periods.
Right.
1950s and the 2000s.
Right.
And how gay life has changed. Because in the 1950s, it was still considered a mental disease. You could be arrested, you could be sent for treatment, you could lose your job, you could be imprisoned, whether in the States or in Britain. And recently, within the last few years, it's no longer considered a mental illness by the American Council of Psychology, and in Britain they have also changed it. It is not a mental disease that can be cured of any kind, so that's really great. And it's fun to see it's fun to see a show about change, but it's really great to show people who may not understand how things have come forward in those time periods. What brought you as a director to this show? What made you want to direct this show? What did you love about it? I want to do this.
John Knapp actually asked me last year after Stupid Kids, and I agreed to direct it before I read it.
Yes, I'll do it.
Oh, right.
I read it. Okay.
And then I read it, and I had to read it again, and then again, and I think maybe a fourth time, just to try and get everything all, to understand all of the relationships of the characters. And then when I finally got it, when I finally had that moment, when I put all the stage directions and all the characters together, I was like, oh my gosh, this is awesome. This is going to be really cool. So I love that now, how it really juxtaposes the 50s and 2008, or today, really.
With your characters, I see Sylvia as truly the oracle of this whole group, because she seems to be aware, whether it's 1950s or 2000, of what's going on. And she's even aware of, I almost think this is taking place in the same apartment, set decades ahead, because she has these moments where something has happened. She has this intuitiveness and foreknowledge that things aren't quite right, and she kind of sees that.
Yeah, that's written into the script.
Yes!
It's there.
It's in there.
You sit there and you see the stage directions, and it's like, oh, Sylvia feels something in the apartment.
Okay.
So there is that. Sylvia is absolutely a character that has a strong understanding of what it means to be human and people's own intuitive nature.
Yeah. Philip and Oliver, separated by time and things. You guys, your characters kind of stay true to themselves, but then there's some reversals in some cases of how you're approaching the two different relationships. And I just took a few notes where Philip seems to be like, it's the unfulfilled life in his 1950s. He's gone to college, he's ready to go out in the world, and family life drags him back in. Let's talk about Philip's 1950s.
It's just like you said, he has the most unfulfilled life, but he has expectations he has to meet. He has a life that he is supposed to lead, and he probably settled into it. They refer to him as graduating when he was 21. So somewhere around 21, 22, he probably decided to marry Sylvia. And it's alluded to that they had a stillborn child.
Okay.
And that is the one and only attempt. And that has just kind of been, it's been a sexless, passionateless marriage, propped up by dinner parties and alcohol.
And what's more 1950s than that?
And then they don't talk.
So 2008.
Right. But yeah, they have this very silent. They function as a family, but there's no action.
Yeah.
Well,
But
they love each other. I mean,
yes, he
there's-
cares about her.
But they're not in love
They're not
with
in
each other. And at that point in time, it would have been perfectly suitable for the two of them to have had a beautiful courtship where they got along wonderfully and they love each other. And there's one thing that is missing, and that's he's not attracted to her. It's not there. It's not in his nature.
And then we have Oliver, 1950s. Fairly successful children's author, and he's working with Sylvia, who seems to share in her past and her present incarnations. She's an actress, and she does all these things. She's like this linchpin across time who keeps bringing these two people together. But 1950s Philip is a little different than 2008 Philip. He's got a successful life. He has traveled. But
You mean Oliver?
Oliver, sorry. Thank
Sorry.
you. He's still kind of like missing something. He's still very closed in until they have this moment. Let's talk about you in the 1950s.
I think that Oliver is, he is well traveled, just like you said, and he's seen a lot of things, and he's been a lot of places, and he has experienced a lot of stuff, but what he's truly in his life wanted to experience freely, he's not being capable of doing so. I think that this is just just a prime example of somebody who's gotten to that breaking point in the 1950s of trying to find what he's always wanted, because innately it is who he is. And, so I mean, that's Oliver in a nutshell.
But something about Oliver in 1950s and the 2000s, in fact, he alludes to those men in the park.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
There's still that very outside the home, grassroots. Where did people meet back in the 1950s? You didn't really have bars per se. You went to the bathhouses, the parks, the docks, and that's where you had relations, but not a relationship.
That's one thing.
Right.
That's one thing that both Olivers have in common, though.
Right, they
Yeah.
do. Absolutely.
With the park, for sure.
And searching for something.
Right,
you
it's
know,
looking for that connection. Because he talks about being lonely. I mean, even in the very opening scene, when he talks about being a writer, he's like, well, it's lonely. And then even in 2008, he just talks about being lonely. I mean,
Not passionate.
It's kind of a theme for the whole show. I mean, both, all three of the characters and all three of their timelines are looking for the connection and also looking for a way to figure out who they really are.
They're trying to break a cycle. I mean, in 2008, Sylvia's, she says, I can't keep doing this. I can't keep being there for you. And it's more than just the characters in 2008. It's just it's this sense that there's been a cycle going on, and you never know. It's
She wants love. She wants a family.
yeah.
She wants a child. She wants that.
At the end of the play, when she's sitting there between them and she's saying how this love can be fruitful and this child that she wants to have can, she's got everything that 1958 Sylvia wants, and it's actually hers.
Yeah.
And they talk a lot about cock.
Well, that's what you do.
Then there's that.
Then there's that. But that's part of it. That's the one thing this one show kind of does, and some other show, they acknowledge the history that
Yes.
men went out seeking, they had these expectations, and they went out for this anonymous sex. And it played all the way through, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, even up through the 90s. I think even today, you still have that anonymous sex. People have those Craigslist hookups because you hear some of those things that 1950s.
Speaking of which,
Well,
I got
there-
to be somewhere.
There are especially parts of this country still has 1950s mentalities and pockets.
Yes.
Yes.
So any young man or young woman, unfortunately born in that area, who is gay, has to still do that.
Well, you know what else is really interesting about the piece, this piece in particular, is also in 2008, our society has advanced so much, or maybe regressed so much, that you can have Craigslist sex, and you can use abominable swear words and just like roll off your tongue. And so, like in the 50s scenes in this show, it's so repressed, it's so repressed, it's so repressed, it's so like you shouldn't talk about that. When it finally does happen, it's really, really brutal and inappropriate by any standards. You have 2013 people today in the audience like gasping when it finally does happen.
Because you guys have captured that very 1950s post-war Britain with the whole relationships. And when that moment happens, you are very vulnerable as the characters, but it's this angry, repressed, this is what you want, and that scene is powerful. Because you can see that happening in any relationship at some point where people are frustrated and angry, can't be who they want. And it could be even today, in 2012. That's the nice thing about this time travel show, is like 1950s group could be 2013.
There's a breaking point.
And 2013 could be back in 1952. That's very well established. And these people are together and it's all happy. Or vice versa.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was so interesting tonight, the first time I've seen it with an audience, and at the end of Act 1, when this powerful thing that we're, not going to tell you what it is.
No spoilers.
Come see it. The audience is like,
do we
like,
applaud? I want to, like, do I applaud? Do I
celebrate?
Wow.
I
Like,
want to show that I felt something.
I felt something. Is it inappropriate?
It's like liking something
it's
on
completely
Facebook.
appropriate just to sit there and just...
Yes.
Which is fun. Because when Act 2 opens, there's a whole new feeling.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
Word of God.
But that's another great conversation for that modern era of, oh yeah, and it's all okay, good with me, but there's a moment that share.
Yeah.
And I think that's what, because you play three different people, but your characters are pivotal in understanding some of these other interpersonal relationships that people are having. Nazi callboy. Then you're Peter the journalist.
Yeah.
And then
he's a bit offensive.
But that's what's so lovely about it. You know this person.
Nazi is not offensive.
Well, it's funny. It's funny
It's not
because
offensive.
you mentioned that the show has a bit of a time travel aspect. Either way, I mean, there's people see this show as time travel or three characters who just happen to share the same experiences with each other in the 50s and 2008.
It's almost like parallel.
It is, and so like this play wouldn't be. It would be a lot more difficult to understand or to weave kind of a general line through, if not. That's why I think that my three characters are written into the play, is because he is needed to sort of be a cohesive kind of bond, which is why with my Nazi callboy, before you see him in 2008, during the 1950s scene, he walks across the stage, and Sylvia, who you mentioned is kind of like a prophetic figure, she feels something as he comes by. Spoiler alert, sorry. But yeah, it's kind of as though he wrote these three roles to just inject whatever needs to be injected in the play at any given time. So like the play starts in 1950s, and it's three people meeting, and they're British, and these two are married, and these two have a connection. They don't really know about it yet, but still, it kind of seems like a typical. play.
It really starts out like
It seems like a typical kind of lackadaisical play until a Nazi walks across the stage.
No
and you're like,
power had a hand in it.
Yeah.
Right.
springtime.
Yeah, exactly.
What show doesn't need, Nazi callboy?
It's been a very Nazi season for Richmond.
It has.
That's true. What do you want an audience to take away from this show, as a director, as a cast? What do you want them to walk away with? Because there's a lot going on here. What do you want them to leave with?
I want them to appreciate what they have. While it might not be perfect, everyone, all their relationships, I want them to go home and examine them still and appreciate or question or try to work on them. Because all of us have things that we still need to work on in our relationships, in our lives. But also, I think sometimes we get a little too hung up on the fact that We focus on the negative things in our lives compared to the things that are so much better for us than other people. Anywhere. I mean, even now in the rest of the world, you're Americans. I mean, there's only so much you can complain about.
I think one of the things I want people to take away from this show is that honesty is a very important thing. It's important whether for these characters in the 50s, whether for these characters in 2008, whether for the audience. I think it's important to be honest in your relationships and tell people everything that is going on, no matter how brutal it might be, because the truth will eventually come out. But also, I feel like it's important to be honest with yourself. And finding, I mean, the tagline on our show, and over in the poster over there, is finding the courage to be who you really are. But in any decade or any time period, it's important to be honest with yourself.
I mean, I think for me, from my perspective is, we've made these huge leaps. We've made huge leaps between 1958 and 2013. But we're not there yet.
Still progress.
There's still progress that still has to be made. And it's not all right yet, but it will be all right. I mean, it's not. We have to keep.
That's the last line in the show.
Well, now look at you.
Spoiler.
See how I just weave? I weave it like a
Edit
tapestry.
that out.
I am like a wreck me.
Yeah.
That's right. Because I think it's very important, because the title of the show is Pride.
Yes.
And we look at 1950s Pride. You know, one character, he can't swallow the fact that he's gay, he's homosexual, and so his pride won't let him take that. We move to the 2000s, and it's, you know, we've got the big parades and what's it about, but then we still have, you know, kids in this nation, especially in the Southwest region, where bullying and suicide is still the highest compared to others. You know, does that pride carry over? Do they have the strength? Have we as a community, as a people, as a nation, given the courage to go, you were worth something?
Well, I mean, it's changed in my lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I grew up with my Uncle Bob and his roommate, who you know, about when I was about 11, he also became my uncle. So I never really thought a whole lot about it. I didn't have a whole lot of ideas of what is homosexuality, what is heterosexuality. But I knew I wanted my uncle to be happy. And so none of the other stuff really mattered. But it took time to get there. Because when I was a kid, it's like, oh, that's your uncle's roommate. And then eventually it was like, no, screw this. This is the man who your uncle loves. And it takes time. We're getting there.
It's crazy how you mentioned the pride that the 50s characters have, which is getting in the way of how they really want to feel. I literally never thought about that until you just said it.
I was paying attention.
Cheers.
I had these few moments when I got it. Other times it's about, you know, being seen, fashion, am I pretty, vanity, you know, all the important things of life.
Yeah, pride.
Right. I look good. Yay. Final thoughts. At the end of the day, what do you as a director want people to walk away?
You know, it's there's a lot in the play, and I mean throughout the rehearsal process, we've been like, oh, did you see how? I want people to walk away with the sense, kind of going along with what everyone said, that we've really come a long way in 50 years. We really have. It's very easy to be like, oh, you know, we have so much further to go. We have so much further to go. But if you stop and look back, we really have come a long way. Especially right now with everything that's going on in the Supreme Court.
Absolutely.
I mean, Phil brought that up at Virginia this morning, earlier this week, you know, and it's very true. It's very relevant right now. So it's just kind of like being grateful for all of the people who've come before and everything that they've done for us. Granted, we're going to keep it going, but let's, you know, take a minute and be thankful for what we have. That's what I'm hoping.
We've come a long way.
When you sit down at the parade, take a second.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. Exactly. And
Because
think about
people
why
don't
you
understand
did
what it really took to get to that moment to have this public event.
that. Exactly.
That's why they call it Pride.
Exactly. You guys and gals had a very powerful show that really, I think, will make people stop and think and appreciate what they have, where people have come from, but what their friends or coworkers or family really need from their friends and family. That they need that it's okay, and have these conversations that if you have a relationship, you got to work at it. You need to be who you are. And I applaud y'all for really showing us, one, your strength of characters, but your character's vulnerability. Because you have some moments where, wow, you were just vulnerable, raw, out there. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The show is The Pride here at Richmond Triangle Players. It runs through April 27th. Tickets are available at rtriangle.org. Thank you again for having me here.
Thank you.
I'm Eric Russell. I've been out and about with Richmond Triangle Players' production of The Pride. You never know where I'll turn up next, so tune in next time. See ya.
Bye.
Thanks, y'all.